Hi, I'm Eric Summerer, and here's what's coming from the Dice Tower this week.
Hey folks, welcome to the Dice Tower Network News. Now this is going to be an interesting week in regards to the fact that I'm going to be gone. I'm taking a bunch of kids to camp this week, so I'm going to be gone all week. And because the Dice Tower convention just happened, didn't have the chance to kind of prep stuff for a week. So you're not going to see a lot of stuff from us this week. But there is things going on. Wanted to talk to you about those in this video. I recorded this video a couple days early than I normally do. So if some major news happened over the weekend, well then I guess we'll talk about that next week. But speaking of news, let's get into it. In the gaming news, let's see, Daft Dice. There's a pile of Kickstarters coming out these days. None have really caught my attention. But Daft Dice I thought was interesting because, once again, they're making dice towers that you can put together, but they're also making dice that you can put together. So like customizable dice. This has some really interesting options, maybe a game in which you can build dice. Not just some ideas for that, but one of the things that you can get from this Kickstarter, if you pledge 10,000 or so, you can get a pair of gold dice with diamond pips. Now that is a product that makes absolutely no sense to buy. Let's see, Dungeon Fighter, a game where you roll dice, bounce dice off a board trying to kill monsters. It's a really silly game. Announced their first of 4 expansions. The 4 expansions will be based on the elements, so fire, water, earth, and air. This first one is based on fire. Fantasy Flight has given us some more information about the upcoming expansion for Cosmic Encounter called Cosmic Storm. They showed off a couple of the new abilities. I especially like the Outlaw, who can steal cards from all those who oppose him. So that will make you think twice about going up against this guy. And Z-Man has given some more information about Neuroshima Hex 3.0, the third iteration of this classic game originally designed by Portal. For News of the Week, we're going to be going next, not this week, but starting next week, we're going to be putting out videos for Gen Con previews. Gen Con is the biggest convention for games in America, certainly is the most important for the American gamer, and there is tons of new, interesting games that will be released this Gen Con, and so we'll be talking about those. But one of the games I want to talk about today is from the folks who made Castle Panic, and that is called Dead Panic. Now, Dead Panic is a zombie game, and I often tend to roll my eyes at the zombie theme. But this one is one that really has me interested. Essentially, you're in a cabin, and the zombies are coming, and you have to fight the zombies off long enough till the van shows up where you can get to the van and get out. But once the van comes, you're then running and trying to get away from the zombies, and if your friends don't make it, well, at least you did. Sounds like a rootin' tootin' time. Castle Panic is one of the best cooperative games for families, and so hopefully this one will fall along those same lines, and also at the same time appeal to those who like the zombie genre. That's Dead Panic from Fireside Games. Since the whole camp thing is happening, not a lot of reviews this week. You can see these are all games that need to be reviewed. The ones here on the top shelf will be reviewed faster than the ones down here, although we're trying to get them played as quickly as we can. So keep an eye on that. More games will be coming and on their way. But as it is, let's move on. In the Dice Tower Network, Little Metal Dog has released number 61, where he interviews several people, as he is wont to do. Brett Morrell, the guy who designed Duel of Ages 2, which just came out. Matthew Dunstan, who has a hand in the new Days of Wonder game coming out, and Daniel Salas. Plaid Hat number 98 has a special guest on, well, me. I guess I'm not that special of a guest, but if you want to hear our thoughts on reviewing games from the reviewer's perspective, from the designer's perspective, from the publisher's perspective, you know, how should you react to reviews, especially negative ones? We talk about that. Secret Cabal number 45, they go over Origins and talk about many of the games that they played there, and they also give a detailed description of Battlestar Galactica and their thoughts on that. Flip the Table is always going to talk about a terrible game, and although it sounds like they have a great time playing them, this time they're talking about Party Mania. Geek All Stars number 56 talked to the Mackenzie brothers about Princes of the Dragon Throne, which was just successfully kick-started. Rolling Dice and Taking Names, number 16, they talk a lot about war games. And they're not a wargaming podcast, so this is kind of a different look at the subject about wargaming and miniatures and painting and terrain and all that. And Snakes Cast number 16 came out, in which they talk about downtime in games and how you can avoid such things. The Dice Tower is going to be releasing a new episode this week in which we talk about Kickstarter. We'll talk about our favorite Kickstarter games, ones that have not ones that are still on Kickstarter or just successfully funded, but ones that were published. How many of those games actually turn out to be high-class games? Stay tuned for our top 10 list there. So once again, it's time to take a look at one of my shelves and see why I keep the games that I do. Pandemic's an easy one to keep because it's such a great cooperative game. Works in so many different situations. That's just an automatic. Bluff is another name for Liar's Dice. The reason I keep the Bluff version is because this version goes up to 6 players, which is kind of critical for this game. Seven Ages. This one's a tough one to kind of justify keeping because the game takes 7 to 8 hours. That's not my normal type of game. The game components are pretty terrible. Again, not my type of game. But I love the Civilization feel. This is the only Civilization game I've ever played that actually really truly feels like building a civilization. And if your civilization gets destroyed, you can start up and build another one. You can have multiple over the course of the game. It also works fairly well with 2 people. Twilight Struggle and 1989 are 2 birds of the same feather in a sense because they're both designed on the same system. They're, again, not my typical style game, but I really like the historical flavor of both and what it adds. Keyflower is a game that may not be long for this shelf. In fact, I'm going to say that about several games on this shelf. I like Keyflower from Richard Breese. It's a fun, strong Euro game about maximizing, and I like the auctions with different meeples. Eminent Domain, actually I seriously considering chucking Eminent Domain off my shelf. Again, remember, any game I get off my shelf at this point is still not a bad game. Eminent Domain is a very good deck builder / role selection game. The main reason I'm hanging on to it is I'm waiting to see if the new expansion changes it enough so that I want to hang on to it. If it does not, then Eminent Domain is gone. Castles of Burgundy, a good Euro game, trying to maximize points. One of the few Stefan Feld games I like. I don't know how long we have for this one to stay with us. Thieves, great game. Love it a lot. Grabbing tiles from a bag. An archaeology game, lots of fun. Jamaica, also very fun in that same regard. Racing pirate ships, and that's a cool looking box. And Stone Age, a very simple worker placement game. 3 great gateway style games. Heavy Euro games, these 2. Eminent Domain is in its own category, so it's kind of a mixed shelf here. Again, I sort my games out by box size and nothing else. Huzzah! It's time to talk about something this week, and I said I would talk about it last week, and that is the Dice Tower Convention 2013. Now, keep an eye on DicetowerCon.com because we're going to be putting up what's going on next year, and I have really no details on that except, folks, Dice Tower Con 2 was the best convention I've ever been to. And I've been to a lot of conventions. Now, every convention is different. I mean, you really can't beat Gen Con for the grandiose nature of it, or Origins for having a big exhibit hall and at the same time having a lot of open gaming, or Board Game Geek Con, or small local cons. So I've never been to a convention that I did not like. I like going to game conventions. They're a lot of fun. But Dice Tower Con beat them all. So I figured the best way to explain that would be to give you my top 10 reasons I like Dice Tower Con 2 so very much. The first of those reasons, where we are, number 10, is the fact that it's family-oriented. This is something that's missing from a lot of conventions. A lot of conventions seem to push kids to the side, or not all of them, but many conventions do that. And the Dice Tower Convention doesn't do that for 2 reasons. One, it's in Orlando. I mean, that gives you Disney World and SeaWorld and Universal Studios and dinner theaters and all kinds of cool things that you can see and do when you're in Orlando. And while I always hear from people, oh, but it's so hot in Florida in the summer. Well, yes, it's hot everywhere in the summer. I live in Florida, and when I go up north, it's just as hot up there in July as it is down here. It just stays hot here for a longer time. But anyway, there's that. But also we had Vernon Dixon and his wife did a great job. They ran this side room where kids could go play. Every kid who went there won a game award. They had lots of fun. They played all the time. But not just that, but the percentage of couples and people playing together as the night wore by, as you looked by and just saw huge amounts of females mixed in with males, something that was not often seen in conventions a while ago, really brought out a good sense of conventions. This wasn't a convention where you go and you hear loud outbursts of profanity. It was very family oriented, and I really enjoyed that. Reason number 9 was the open gaming aspect of it. Yes, there were tournaments there. I saw Richard Borg running a Liar's Dice tournament. I know there was a Netrunner tournament. There was a Settlers of Catan. There was Ticket to Ride tournaments, and they were there. But the whole focus of this was the open gaming aspect of it. The open gaming area was it was a large ballroom. We had 600 people, and I would say at any given point, at least 300 of them were open gaming in that room. It was full, but never too full, and so we had a lot of fun playing a large variety of games. Number 8, we had several publishers show up, and from small publishers to somewhat larger ones. One of the publishers I want to give particular note to was R&R Games. Now, there was other publishers, like I said. Arcane Wonders was there playing Mage Wars, and they had a Mage Wars tournament. But R&R Games brings that whole party feel with them. They did Time's Up and Smarty Pants, and they've done a lot of really good party games, and they bring that, and they really were just a lot of fun to play with as they demoed party games. And so we want to thank the publishers who came. Number 7 was the events that we got to run. I was so fortunate this time to have my co-host Eric Summerer come, and my co-host from my video show, Z Garcia and Sam Healy. And if you missed our top 10 list of overrated games, that was a lot of fun to do. That we did that week. But Eric and I also had a great time. We ran a game show where we played Calvin Ball, tumbling dice in it. We also did 2 Wits and Wagers game shows because so many people signed up for them. And it seemed like we did some kind of thing every night, and we just had a lot of fun doing that and meeting a lot of fans of the Dice Tower. And if you came in, a big thank you. I know I tried to play at a different table for every game that I played at, so I could play with as many people as possible, but still didn't have a chance to meet everyone. But thank you all for coming. Number 6, a lot of designers came, and we appreciate that. I mentioned Richard Borg coming and showing off Liar's Dice, and he showed off Memoir 44 and his other games in that Battle Cry type system. And Richard Launius came and ran Arkham Horror, and Robert Burke was there, and Colby Dahl came from Plaid Hat Games, and there was many designers there. 7 designers was their first time. We had the folks come from show off Agents of Smersh, and there was a lot of that going on. It was really neat to be able to play games with designers in a very, very informal setting. Number 5 was the hotel itself. We stayed at the Doubletree at the end of International Drive right next to SeaWorld in Orlando, and it was amazing. It was one of the best hotel experiences I've ever had. The rooms were fine, but it was the hotel staff. They went above and beyond. I had a chance to sit in the meeting with the hotel staff before the convention began with Patrick Havert, who runs the convention. Side note, Tom Vasel does not run the Dice Tower convention. I do not put in all the work. I mean, we go work at the convention and run events and all that, but Patrick Havert does a fantastic job at it. And as we talked to the staff, they were so kind, they were so patient. They came with food around that night to get it for the tables. There was food right outside the door of the main ballroom that you could get. They were very helpful in every aspect they could see, very nice. Although there was a laugh out loud moment for me in the pre-meeting when I was with all these people, and the lady who was in charge of food, she said, "Now, what kind of food are gamers looking for? Are they mostly interested in healthy food?" And I just could not help but laughing there. We told them have a lot of Mountain Dew and Red Bull and Doritos and things like that. Yes, I know some gamers eat healthy food, but anyway. Number 4 reason for Dice Tower Con being a great convention was the Cool Stuff Incorporated. Cool Stuff showed up, and they are amazing. Obviously, you say, Vasel, you say that because they sponsor your show. Well, has it ever occurred to you that maybe I work with them as a sponsor of my show because I really do think they're that great? Cool Stuff Incorporated is an online gaming store based out of Orlando, but They do have currently 4 local gaming stores, 2 of them in the Orlando area, 1 in Fort Lauderdale, which I go to occasionally, and 1 up in Jacksonville, Florida, which just opened a couple weeks ago. And they plan on opening more of those. And they have the nicest game stores I've been to. They're clean, they're wonderful, and they have that online gaming store thing. So what they did is they came and set up a whole section in the back to sell their games at the convention. And so the very first people who came into the convention went right back to Cool Stuff and started buying games. And you could go there, they had computers set up, and you could order your games, and they would deliver them the next day for Cool Stuff prices, which was really cool. But not only that, they just really helped sponsor the convention. They gave a lot of games away to give in raffles. They had a crew, and this is a big deal. They had a crew come through video cameras and take pictures and do stuff. I didn't have to do any of that this time, which was really nice. And you can see all that at DicetowerConLive.com. DicetowerConLive.com. It's really well done. If you really want to feel for how the convention is, go check out that website. There's a lot of information there. So thank you for the Cool Stuff. Let's see, number 3, the Jack Vasel Memorial Fund. There is a fund that I'm part of that helps gamers in time of need, and they had raffles every night, and those raffle winners, or all the raffle ticket funds, went to the Jack Vasel Fund. And then there was an auction on the last Saturday night, which had some very good bids. It was neat. Richard Launius and Robert Burke and others stood in the back and offered to sign games as they were won, and the proceeds were over $3,500, and I was very thankful for that. To all of those of you who bid in that auction, I really appreciate it, or who donated things for the auction. Number 2 was the gaming library. Now, this is not hyperbole. The Dice Tower Convention has the best gaming library in the world. Now you say, Vasel, that is not true. I've been to other libraries and they have huge collections. That's true. That's true. For example, Board Game Geek has a mega collection of games. It's the biggest library in the world. That is for sure. Origins also has a large library. Gen Con has a large library. But what those libraries do is they have every game you could possibly ever want to play. The Jack Vasel, the Dice Tower Convention library was, I don't know, I'm going to guess maybe there was 600-700 games in it. But they were all games you want to play. There was 5 copies of Ticket to Ride, and then all the brand new games that have just come out. There was all sorts of great copies in there, so you didn't have to go through 10 copies of Trivia Pursuit and Survival, the board game that no one's ever going to play. And what they do each year for this convention, Patrick told me, is they look at games that nobody checked out, and then those games don't come back. But if you ask for it, then it will be there the next year. And then they're constantly trying to add new stuff. Now, you may not believe me, but it was a fantastic library. And then number 1, the best thing about the convention, of course, were the people who were there. I mentioned the folks from my show who were there. Several of my contributors came up. I had so much fun there. I mean, I'm always tempted at conventions to sit around and talk and not actually play games. Although at Dice Tower Con, I probably played 30 plus games. I had so much fun with all the people there. Everybody had a good attitude. Like I said, the whole family-oriented thing just made people fun to be around. It was great. I didn't have one bad experience with people who were there. Everybody came in. The game shows were raucous and yet still fun. Our live shows we did were fun. Everyone just was, it was so fun. So much fun. And I don't know how else to describe it. It just was, the area was so easy to get out of the hotel and go eat at different places around the area and come right back and just have a good time. I took my family. We went to SeaWorld beforehand and duringhand, and at the same time my wife was able to come down and play games. My daughter came down and played games, and it was a great time. So, if you were involved with the Dice Tower Convention at all, a huge thank you for all the volunteers, as Patrick and his wife did a super job setting everything up, and all the other volunteers, fantastic. For all those who supported it in some way, exhibitors, cool stuff and all that, thank you. For all those of you who came, thank you. For those of you who didn't come, guys, this year we sold out again, and there was people who wanted to come and it was too late. Don't delay. I will make an announcement here on the Dice Tower video and on the Dice Tower audio podcast and say sign up, and don't delay, sign up, because it will be the most fun you will ever have gaming, at least until Dice Tower Convention 4, I suppose. Anyway, thanks for watching. Let's move on. All right, well, ladies and gentlemen, that's it for this week. You can always find out the news at GameBugle.com. Don't forget to check out the other podcast I didn't mention during the podcast, and that's Board Game University. If you've not listened to that one, each week I interview a designer or publisher or someone else in the industry about designing games. This week we have a special one going up, which will be a live recording of a panel that we did at Dice Tower Convention with several designers that were there. Richard Lanius, Robert Burke, Colby Dog, and Brian Pope from Arcane Wonders. And so really a lot of fun that was, and so that will be posted this Thursday. But anyway, that's enough talking from me. It's time to get ready to go to camp, and it's time for you guys to just go out and play games. No reviews this week, I apologize, but next week we will certainly make up for that.
To find out more about all of our podcasts, check out DicetowerNetwork.com. To see a listing of our videos, head to Dicetower.com. We'd like to thank our sponsor, Cool Stuff Incorporated, where you can buy games for great prices. Cool stuff in stock.
Shut the door!